know if like, also, wait, I have to turn my camera on. Sorry. Okay. Hello. So, I'm Julia. I'm the academic chair for BMES. And we're going to be doing an AutoCAD workshop just to teach you guys about the introduction, how to use it and stuff, because if you don't have experience, then at the beginning, it can be kind of confusing. So the QR form is the attendance code, so you could just use your phone to scan that and like fill it out later. But I'll give you a second to scan that right now. Okay, that should be good. Okay, so what is AutoCAD? So AutoCAD is a computer-aided design platform. It's like the most famous drawing program, and it's used by architects and engineers. You can create 2D drawings. So the 2D drawings that engineers usually create are like schematic drawings. So they would draw 2D like images of parts to a certain device, and then they could put all the parts together. And you can even do 3D drawings. So you make those 2D projections into 3D objects, which is pretty cool. And if you're a Stony Brook student, you can download it for free, which I hope that whoever's here has it downloaded already. But you can get it for free on like the Autodesk website. And then, yeah, so whoever's here, have you ever used AutoCAD before? Okay, no, hold on. No, okay, all right, that's good because this presentation is like kind of basic, so it'll be a good introduction. Okay, so like I was saying, in AutoCAD, you could do 2D line drawing. So this is any sort of shapes that you want to make. And then 3D constructions are taking these shapes and just making them 3D. So if you draw a rectangle and you make it 3D, obviously it's going to be like a rectangular prism. And then any circles that you draw can be made into cylinders. And like I said, part assembly. So you could draw different parts of a device and then make them into 3D models and print them and then put them together. Okay, so what we want to do in this workshop is we want to go over setting up your workspace, because if you don't set up your workspace correctly, then it could be hard to actually start drawing. And we're going to go over the basic and common commands and how to export your stuff to a printer if that's what you wanted to do. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is make sure you have AutoCAD open on your computer. But I'm just going to go through like the steps of starting a new drawing and the commands, and then I'll share my screen with AutoCAD on it. So to start a new drawing, you would go into the top left corner of your AutoCAD interface, and you should see this red A. And you can just click on that and then go to a new, and then you can just leave the default settings that are there. But we'll go over that, like I said. So this is what the command interface will look like once you have AutoCAD open. So it's kind of self-explanatory, but this move command right here obviously will let you move any drawing that you have. And then going back up here, sorry, a line is obviously what you would use just to draw a line. You can connect these lines together and make a shape. But usually we would use a tool like this rectangle or a circle so that you can just make one line together instead of connecting them. And you can you could set the dimensions for like the circle by radius, and then the rectangle, once you start drawing it, it'll give you dimensions on each side. So that's how you could do a lot of that stuff. And you can also rotate and scale your images. So if you make something too small, but you want everything to be made larger, like by the same amount, you could scale it. And a polyline, I didn't cover that, but like that's just a line you can use that will connect to each other, and then you can make that a 3D projection like in one try. Okay, so once you draw in 2D, if you want to make a 3D drawing, you usually have to change the view. So this can also be done in the top left corner of your like drawing frame. And usually you start in the 2D wireframe, which is the most simple one. And then when you want to make a 3D object, usually you can go into the realistic option, and I'll show everyone, but it's supposed to be more of like a realistic view. And then you could change the direction from which you're looking at your drawing, and you'll see the 3D projection as you make an extrusion, which we'll also go over. Okay, so I only selected a few of these to go over because there are a lot, but honestly, I haven't even used a lot of them. So if you're just starting to use AutoCAD, then these are the ones that you would be using. So extrude right here, this is how you go from a 2D to a 3D object. So if you draw a rectangle and you want to make it into like a rectangular prism, you would select the object and then extrude it. So you could set how high you want to make it. And that would obviously be the height of your object. And then this right here is the subtraction key. So it allows you to subtract two extrusions from each other. So if you want to make a hole or if you want to make an opening in your object, that's what you would use. So we'll also go over how to do that at the end. Okay, so these are just some of the stuff, some of the designs I made in AutoCAD. On the left is just when I took BME 203, which is like a AutoCAD based class. We were like designing stuff like this because we were trying to get practice on how to dimension lines. So I made this like shape. And then on the right, this is a 3D design I made for an internship that I did in like a microscope company that they use a lot of 3D designed objects to hold like their samples. So you can see right here, like this is where they would put the little like vials, and then this is where they would put the samples if they were like holding it. So yeah, that's some of the stuff I've done. And also I know a lot of classes use it for like final projects and stuff. I've 3D printed a windmill. I just couldn't find the file, but yeah. Okay, so now we're gonna open AutoCAD and we're gonna design some simple 2D drawings. Sorry. So I'm gonna stop sharing my screen and then I'll share my AutoCAD stuff. So I'll give everyone a second to get it open. And once you have it open, just put like a thumbs up or something so that I know to move on. Does everyone have it open? Because I see two people didn't. Okay, we can just get started. I'm sure everyone has it open. Maybe you just forgot to do the thumbs up. Oh, okay, yeah, thank you. So the first thing we want to do, let me double check, is we want to make a 5-inch by 4-inch rectangle. So usually when you start designing on AutoCAD, your units should be in inches. But if you want to check, you can go down to the command line at the bottom and just click units or type in units. And then this like little interface should pop up. And then you can go down to the scale and there's all these different units. So just make sure you select inches so that we're all using the same sort of unit. And then you can just press OK. Okay. So now if we want to make a rectangle, does anyone remember what tool we should be using in the draw section? I kind of just gave it away. The 8th one? Okay, I'm gonna assume that means rectangle. Okay, so select the rectangle tool that we're gonna be using to actually draw the rectangle. And where it says specify first corner, that's just giving you like the coordinate points, but for us, it doesn't really matter because we're just designing stuff. So you can click anywhere, and then once you drag out your cursor, you'll see that it makes a rectangle for you. But we actually want to set the dimensions of it. So we said that we want the rectangle to be 5 by 4. So we can make this bottom side 5 inches. So you would just type in 5. And then to go over to the other one, why is this not working? Oh, yeah. And then to go over to the other one, just click like your next arrow on your keyboard and type in 4. So that should make it a 5 by 4 inch rectangle. It looks small, but you could zoom in. So I could do it again because I did that kind of fast. So if you want to delete any object also, you can just like use your 2 fingers to click on it, and then you should be able to click erase. Yeah, or right click, and you can click erase. So that's pretty easy also. But I'm just going to do it again. So you get the rectangle tool and then go back and specify any spot that you want. And then type in 5. And then with like the arrows on the bottom right of your keyboard, just click the next. Mine's frozen. Why is this being weird now? Okay. And this time I made it a 4 by 5 rectangle. So a little different than last time, but it still has the same dimensions. So did anyone have a problem doing that? No, yes. Okay, all right. So the next thing we want to do is we want to make a 3-inch by 3-inch square. So basically that's the same thing as we just did, but we're just gonna make it a square instead of a rectangle. And then you could see that once we make it a 3D drawing, it would just be a cube. So we can go ahead and do that. So basically the same thing, just type in 3 and then, hold on, I accidentally clicked this. And then go over to the other side and you can also press 3. So I think I did that wrong. So that's good. Hold on. Oh. Let me just check some. I'm just gonna make a square. That's okay. So then the third thing we want to draw is, let me see. Okay, we're gonna make a circle with the radius of 1 inch. So that one should be pretty self-explanatory also. So just select the circle key and then you could draw a circle like this. Like I said, once you start like dragging it out, it's gonna get bigger. But when you type this value into the bar, like this little white bar right here, it's gonna represent the radius, not the diameter. So just like keep that in mind if you're ever designing stuff, because I know that sometimes even like I've messed that up. So you could just type in 1 and you can see it makes a little circle. So that's also pretty easy. So does anyone have any questions on how to do any of this? It's pretty simple, but just to start out, you know. Can everyone see the presentation now, or is it still on like the AutoCAD thing? Oh, okay. All right, so I'm gonna change it for a second. Okay, so there's no questions and we'll move on. So now we're just gonna make the 2D drawings that we just drew into 3D objects to get you guys familiar with how to use the extrusion tool in AutoCAD. So let me go back. Okay, so go up to the top left corner of the interface and you're just gonna go to realistic. And then you can see nothing really changed. So what we want to do is we want to change the view that we're looking at so that when we actually make them 3D, you can see the height that's changing. So you can go to this top right coordinate system and go to the home button and it'll make it view from like a southwest angle, which is, you know, you could imagine when you make something 3D, you could see it the height changing. So the first thing we want to do is we want to make this rectangle have a height of 4 inches. So let me see something. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna go to this tool right here, the extrude tool that makes a 3D solid from a 2D curve, which is just a line. So you're gonna select that, and then this little pop-up is gonna come up right here that says select objects to extrude, and you're gonna make sure that once you click the object you wanna make 3D, that it gets highlighted. So you can just click that and then click enter. And you should see this sort of tool pop up, like this box that you could change the height of. You could see that when you go like down, it's making it a negative sort of thing. You're going like below the plane. So just drag it upwards. And then I said we wanted to make the height 4 inches. So you could just type in 4 and then that made it 4 inches. And then does anyone have problems doing that? Because I know sometimes like when I first started doing this, I couldn't do it because I was dumb. But now, once you get it down, it's like pretty simple. So does anyone have a problem doing that? I could do it again also if I like went too fast. Don't think anyone. Okay, good. So now we're just gonna go over to the square. We're gonna do the same thing. Click extrude. You can make it as tall as you want. It doesn't really matter. Just, you know. So just click enter. I'm gonna make it 3 inches or 2 inches this time. So you can obviously see that this is half the height of this. So you know that your measurements are pretty accurate. If you want to ever check your like dimensions, there is a dimension like option up here. Usually what I do is I just like draw a line and then check how tall the line is. But you could also do the dimensioning, whichever one you prefer. And then we're just going to take the circle and again, highlight it, click enter, and you can make the cylinder as tall as you want. Usually when and I made this one 5 inches. But usually when like I do designs in AutoCAD, I feel like the cylinder is the most famous like shape that I use. I don't know how often I use like the rectangles and squares. Maybe it's just like what I've designed, but a lot of times like when you do make rectangles and squares, you could draw different lines and like cut out pieces of it to make them like different shapes. I know that's what I did for my windmill project, but that's like more complicated and takes a while. So I just decided to do simple shapes. But I'm gonna go back to the presentation because the last thing we're gonna do is combining some of this other stuff that we learned with the subtraction. Okay, so we drew that cylinder, which was really tall, but something that we wanna try doing is we wanna make a ring because in the lab that I'm working in currently, we were designing 3D rings so that we could use it for a device that we had made. So I had to use AutoCAD to 3D print rings, and something that you have to keep in mind when you're doing subtractions like this, and if you want stuff to fit in like a certain space, so like this hole right here is supposed to go over a peg on one of our devices, you have to think of like tolerance, which I don't know if anyone knows what that is, but basically it's when you 3D print stuff and you set a hole or like even like a shape to a certain size, there's a certain tolerance level, which basically means that like there's a certain degree of variation that happens. So even though we were measuring everything correctly and we made the hole like a certain, radius, it didn't fit because we didn't take into account tolerance. So we had to reprint it. But that's just something to keep in mind is that like 3D printing is pretty accurate, but there's like little variations in it that can change, what you do. So we want to make this sort of ring. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back into AutoCAD and we're going to make like a shorter cylinder, and then we're going to cut a hole through it, which we haven't done yet. So I'm going to teach you guys how to do that. So we'll go back. I'm just going to delete my cylinder so it's not here anymore. But basically what you're going to do is you're just going to go to the circle tool. And let's say you can make it any radius you want. I'm going to do 3, so it's like a little bigger. And then again, we're going to go to the extrude tool. You're going to select the object, and I'm going to make mine just like 1 inch high because we don't need it to be super tall. So does anyone have any idea how we would make a hole? Because I know I had said the subtraction tool, but does anyone have any idea how we would actually do that? Like what we have to, can this move? Okay. Does anyone have any idea like how we would actually go about making a hole through this using that tool? Because it's not super straightforward. Okay. Well, I could just tell you if no one really knows. So, sorry. So you would make 2 circles, which I struggled with for a while, which might be a problem, but yeah, and then making it 3D and subtracting it. So basically what that means is you can see that this tool, like the colored like coordinate plane, is going like on the plane of the drawing that you just made. So we're going to take another circle and you're going to draw it basically on top of this. And there's like ways to center it and stuff. Hold on. Let me see. Yeah, so if you want to make it in the center, which usually we would want to do that if you're making a ring, you can just go to like the highlighted edge of this circle and you should see this little like cross show up in the middle, which basically means like that it's centered. So you can just click that, and now you can see that when you're dragging out the circle, it's going in equal distance from the center. So you could set this to whatever you want. I'm going to make mine again like 1 inch. And then from here, so now we just have like this 2D circle on our like little cylinder. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to extrude this through your object. And then once you do that, you could subtract it. So you could draw, I'm just going to draw it downward because usually that's what I do. So now you have like this longer cylinder along with this, like your ring. So when you want to subtract them, you would select the subtraction tool, and you can see it says select objects. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to click the cylinder and click enter, and then click this bigger cylinder and also click enter. And you can see that it removes the cylinder shape from your ring. So that's how you create like simple holes if you want to design stuff like this. So does anyone have a question on how to do that? And also like the drawing that I showed in the beginning that I made for like the internship that I did, I use the subtraction tool on that to make like those divots in the object, which takes a while because if you're trying to like not go all the way through, you have to like set a certain distance and stuff, but that's more complicated. But does anyone have questions on how to do this? I presume not. Okay. That's kind of all I really had in here. You guys did that pretty fast. Usually it takes me to do a while to do stuff. So I didn't want to make it super long. But yeah, does anyone have any other questions on like how to do other stuff in AutoCAD? Because I know I made, oh, also wait, let me go back to the beginning. If you came late, you could scan this QR code to like sign in for attendance purposes. But does anyone else have any other? Yeah, how would you make it a rounded corner? That's a good question. Hold on. Let me go back. Okay. So you mean like a rounded corner on the rectangle? Is what I'm assuming. Yes, okay. So you would go over here and there's, let me find the tool. I haven't done that in a while, but basically what you would do is, can my mouse work? Hold on. Okay, so that's called a fillet when you make a rounded edge. You can see this pop up right here. I think that when I learned to do it, they briefly said it in class, but I watched a YouTube video that was kind of helpful. But what you would essentially do is you would select like the edge that you want to make into like a fillet, which is rounded. And then you could do, I need to figure out how to do that again. But there's a way that you could set like the radius of the fillet to be like a certain like amount of curvature. So let me see if I can figure out how to do it. I should be able to, but I haven't done that in a while. But that is how you would do it. You use that a lot because like I said, like many times when you're designing something, it's not going to have like perfect edges. So you would want to use that command to do it, but that is the tool that you would use. I just don't know why I can't figure out how to use it. Let's see something. Select first object. Yeah, okay. Sorry, I don't know why I can't figure out how to do that, but that is how you would do it. And I guess that like you can also, if you want to, if you start from the beginning and you realize that you want like a curved edge, you could do like an arc drawing, which I guess is less common. But sometimes if you're making like a rectangle with an arc on top, then that's how you would do it. But yeah, rounded edges can be made with like the fillet tool. Are there any other questions? Just
I had a question. So I know that the Autodesk people, I know they also make like other like CAD software. What's like the difference between this and like Fusion or something similar like that?
Yeah, so a lot of people, the internship that I actually did, we used Autodesk Inventor, which is like basically AutoCAD, but the interface is a little different. It's more modern actually, and like for Autodesk Fusion, I know that some kids in my class use that because it's collaborative. So like it's kind of like a Google Drive. So you could like make an AutoCAD drawing and then someone else can access it and work on it. But for AutoCAD, if you want to work on it with other people, you have to like email the file to them and then they'll email it back to you and you have to open it. I think that's the main difference, but I've used Inventor and AutoCAD. I've never used Fusion, but basically they all do the same thing. I know that like a lot of engineers might use Inventor for like really complicated drawings because the storage is better. But that's like the only difference that I know.
Okay, I see. So like different software might have like different advantages or something.
Yeah, like I said, the Fusion one is like a Google Drive for AutoCAD, which is so useful because if you're doing a group project, then you like everyone can work on it at the same time. And like you could see the updates, but not for this one, which kind of sucks because I feel like this one is easier to use than those, but just because the layout is different, but not like crazy differences. Yeah. But yeah, that's really all I have for the presentation. I don't know if anyone else has other questions, but I'm gonna put the attendance thing back up and then I know like for BMES, we're doing other workshops like with other members of the club. They couldn't be here today, but there's like Arduino stuff. So if anyone, oh, you're welcome. But if anyone is interested in that, you could, once you scan the QR code, it does ask for your email. But if you're interested in being put on the email list, we could do that as well. But yeah, that's really all I have. So Good luck at your hackathon.
Yeah, thank you guys for attending.